hope you're doing well and welcome to the Home Broadcasting Channel. My name is Mtalam Kosia. The Horn of Africa is once again facing a growing fuel crisis, and for millions of ordinary citizens across countries like Kenya, Ethiopia, Somalia, Sudan, South Sudan and Uganda, the pain is becoming unbearable. Fuel prices continue to rise. Transportation costs are increasing every day. Food prices are becoming unaffordable, and businesses are struggling to survive. Yet despite of these hardships, many citizens across the region believe this crisis is no longer just about global oil markets. Increasingly, people feel that the fuel crisis has become a political and economic con game designed to benefit powerful elites while ordinary citizens suffer. We examine why people of the Horn of Africa felt cheated, where this fuel crisis began, who benefits from it, and what governments must do before public anger explodes into deeper instability. To understand the current crisis, we must first understand the structure of the Horn of Africa economies. Most countries in the region are heavily dependent on imported petroleum products. Unlike major oil-producing nations, countries such as Kenya, Ethiopia, Uganda and Somalia import refined fuel from Middle East and global suppliers. This means any disruption in global oil supply immediately affects local economies. The crisis worsened after the global economic shocks caused by COVID-19 pandemic, the Russian-Ukrainian war, supply chain disruptions, and increasing tensions in the Red Sea shipping corridor. Fuel transportation routes through the Red Sea became more expensive and risky. Insurance costs for cargo increased. Shipping companies raised prices. Government across East Africa then transferred these costs directly to consumers. But while leaders continue blaming international markets, citizens are asking difficult questions. Why do fuel prices remain high even when global oil prices sometimes fall? Why are taxes on fuel increasing every year? Why are politically connected companies becoming richer during the crisis that is destroying ordinary citizens? Why does corruption always appear around fuel importation deals? These are the questions now dominating conversations across the Horn of Africa. In Kenya, fuel prices directly affect every sector of the economy. When fuel prices rise, matatu fares increase immediately, food transformation from rural areas become expensive, electricity costs increase, manufacturing costs go up, small businesses suffer, yet many Kenyans feel there is little transparency in how fuel prices are calculated. Citizens hear about taxes, levies, stabilization funds and subsidies, but the final result is always the same: higher prices. Many ordinary citizens feel the system is manipulated by cartels. They suspect that the politically connected importers, energy brokers, and middlemen deliberately benefit from instability. Every crisis becomes an opportunity for certain individuals to accumulate enormous wealth, while the public is told to be patient. In Ethiopia, the situation is even more severe. Years of conflict, foreign currency shortages, inflation and economic instability have created immense pressure on fuel supplies. Fuel shortages have become common in several regions. Long queues at petrol stations have become part of everyday life. Businesses are struggling with operational costs, while transportation of goods across the country has become increasingly expensive. Citizens there also question why fuel shortages continue despite repeated government promises. Many believe state control over the fuel sector creates opportunities for corruption and political favorism. When people wait for hours to buy fuel while politically connected individuals seem unaffected, public trust begins to collapse. In Sudan and South Sudan, conflict has turned fuel into both an economic and a weapon of survival. Armed groups, political elites, and smugglers reportedly profit enormously from black market fuel trading. In some areas, fuel prices have been manipulated several times beyond official government rates. Ordinary citizens often cannot afford transportation, generators, or agricultural production costs. For many Sudanese and South Sudanese citizens, the fuel crisis symbolizes something larger: the complete failure of governance. People watch political elite travel in luxury convoys while hospitals struggle to run generators and farmers cannot transport produce to the markets. In Somalia, the challenge is different but equally painful. Somalia depends heavily on imported fuel, and weak regulation creates huge price variations. Citizens frequently accuse business cartels of price manipulation. Because institutions remain fragile, many people believe there is little accountability in the fuel supply chain. Across the region, a dangerous perception is growing that government only react when elite interests are threatened, not when ordinary citizens suffer. This is why many now describe fuel crisis as a con game. People feel trapped in a cycle where every explanation sounds temporary, but the suffering becomes permanent. When global oil prices rise, governments say prices must increase. When global oil prices fall, prices at local pumps remain high due to the taxes and other charges. When citizens complain, leaders blame international markets. When corruption scandals emerge, investigation rarely lead to accountability. These patterns have created deep public cynicism, and the anger is now not only about fuel itself. Fuel affects everything. A boda rider in Nairobi works longer hours but earns less because fuel consumes most of his income. A mother in Addis Ababa pays more for bread because transportation costs have increased. A farmer in Uganda struggles to transport produce to the markets. A small business owner in Mogadishu cannot afford generator fuel. A taxi driver in Juba watches profits disappear daily. The fuel crisis has become a regional social crisis. What makes the situation even more dangerous is the widening gap between leaders and citizens. Across the Horn of Africa, many governments continue spending heavily on luxury vehicles, foreign travel, and political campaigns while asking citizens to endure economic pain. This contradiction fuels public resentment. Social media has now amplified these frustrations. Citizens now compare fuel prices, government policies, and corruption scandals across borders in real time. Young people especially feel political elites are disconnected from reality. They see governments imposing taxes while unemployment remains high and living standards continue declining. Another major issue is dependency. The Horn of Africa remains vulnerable because most countries have failed to build strong, large energy infrastructure. Despite years of promises, refinery projects moving slowly, regional pipelines face political disputes, and investment in alternative energy remains limited. Ironically, some countries in the region possess oil or strategic energy potential, yet ordinary citizens see little benefit. Instead, fuel continues to symbolize inequality and broken promises. Experts warn that if government failed to address the crisis transparently, the region could face increased protests, economic instability, and political unrest. History has shown us that rising fuel prices often trigger wider public anger because they affect every household directly. So what must be done? First, the government across the Horn of Africa must increase transparency in fuel pricing. Citizens deserve clear explanation about taxes, importation costs, subsidies, and pricing structures. Second, corruption within fuel supply chains must be confronted seriously. Investigations should not only target small operators while protecting politically connected cartels. Third, regional cooperation is essential. Countries in the Horn of Africa need strong economic coordination on fuel imports, storage, and transportation infrastructure to reduce vulnerability to external shocks. Fourth, the government must invest more aggressively in renewable energy, local refining capacity, and long-term energy independence. And finally, the leaders must recognize the public trust is collapsing. Citizens are no longer satisfied with speeches blaming foreign markets while the local corruption remains untouched. The fuel crisis in the Horn of Africa is no longer just an economic issue. It has become a test of leadership, accountability, and governance itself. Because when people begin believing that national suffering is being manipulated for profit, the real crisis is no longer fuel. The real crisis becomes trust between governments and the people they lead. If you've got any questions, comments, or any contribution, please do so in the comment section. My name is Mtalam Kosia, and this is the Horn Broadcasting Channel.